I'm delighted to welcome my special guest, Daniel James. Daniel was the founder member of 90's pop group Yell, who had a top hit with Instant Replay. And these days, he's enjoying a solo career, writing and producing great songs. And his latest single is called Don't Want to Lose That Girl. Welcome, Daniel.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a brilliant introduction. Can I pay you to come round with me and just announce me wherever I go? That was fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, it's all true, isn't it? And you're most welcome.
My mum would be over the moon with that.
Ah, well, she'll be able to listen to this, won't she? Now, I'd like to start, Daniel, if we go back to your early days in Yell. Now, didn't you and your bandmate discover this perfect cover song, Instant Replay, which originally was by Dan Hartman, whilst you were out clubbing in Ibiza?
Paul and I we took a holiday because when we first started, I used to turn up at Paul's and I'd have all these melodies and songs in my head. And he was great at keyboards and percussion. So I'd turn up with his ideas, and we'd basically written a couple of albums nearly worth of material. And then we started to do gigs in the night, touring the country in a beat up old car, 11 o'clock at night in Birmingham, and then driving across to Evesham for 1 o'clock in the morning and ducking the bottles and stuff. And it was like real education. Then we started to do the lunch clubs, and we would go to schools at lunchtime, and they'd have their dinner, and then we'd turn up and we'd do a couple of songs. It was brilliant. You know, if you remember school days, some of the best things about it was the smell of the school dinners wafting down the corridors. So we'd turn up famished. We'd probably had a gig somewhere at 11 the night before, and we'd turn up, and the dinner ladies were lovely. They'd say, "Oh, boys, you look so thin, you look so hungry." And they'd dish up some dinner for us and then put it in a heating thing. And then everyone would have their dinners. We'd perform. And the best bit was after the performance, we'd go back and sit. Everyone would go back to their lessons. And the dinner ladies had come up with these trays of dinner. So by then, you know, we were fattened up and we said, look, we need a break. And we were signed to Simon Cowell by then. And he wanted us. I wanted to release some tracks from the album that I'd mostly written, and you know, Paul had written some of it as well. And because there were some great tracks on the album, but Simon was a firm believer, as we know. Simon loves a cover version.
He does, doesn't he?
He used to sleep with a Guinness Book of Hit Singles under his pillow, I think. And anyway, so Paul and I nipped off to Ibiza, and we had a great time, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
I had mopeds. We were all over the shop. Lovely. And one Thursday night, we were in this club. And they had it was about 3 or 4 in the morning, and they'd had this long chill out, but people started to get lively again. And suddenly you heard 10, 9. And I, you know, we were looking at each other, and the floor, by the time we got to 1, the floor was round. It was like, oh, is this 11 o'clock at night again? Everyone's come alive for this one song. People loved the song. And I looked at Paul and I said, you know what? You know, Simon keeps going on about a cover version. I said, this one's actually really good, you know, because obviously you never know with Simon whether you were going to get Una Palona Blanca or Agadoo or the Birdie song, bless him, you know, as well intentioned as he was.
Yeah.
So it was better to have a hand in your own cover version, you know. If we weren't going to write it, we wanted to pick it. So we flew back to England, sort of a bit tanned up, you know, feeling a bit cool and whatever. Turn up at Simon's office, and of course Simon looks across, bless him, looks across between, you know, James Bond and David Dickinson's Long Lost Love Child. He's sitting at the table in a leather chair with a stunning suntan, you know, immaculate, with his feet up on the table. And we kind of walk in thinking we look cool, and he's sitting there looking like $1 million. And he said, boys, I've got a fabulous idea for a song. I said, before you say anything, because Simon and I used to have these sort of tennis match conversations backwards and forwards about songs. And I mean, he always listened. I'll give him his due. He always listened to the songs that we'd written, and he had an open mind. Good. But he never lost that vision of the cover version. And of course, you know, the man's a businessman. He wants what's best for his new record label. And so we had this back and forth, this tennis match, where I'd be fighting for one of our songs and he'd be fighting for a cover version. So, as I say, we turned up at the meeting, and of course, this was the meeting. This was going to be the song. And he was just about to tell us the song. And I went, hang on a minute, Simon. And I said, I've got an idea. I said, something came to us while we were on holiday. And he said, what? And I said, Instant Replay by Dan Hartman. He swiveled on his chair. His feet came down off the desk. and he had the Guinness Book of Hit Singles in his hand, and it fell over. And when I went to pick it up, because being the age he was, I didn't want him to bend down. Joke. And I picked the book up. Listen, the Guinness Book of Hit Singles is a big, thick book in those days, and there was a page turned over. In fact, there were a few pages that had been turned over that were creased. Obviously, he'd been thumbing through it for ages. But the night before, he'd been thumbing through it, and there was a page folded over on the corner, and it was folded over on Dan Hartman's Instant Replay.
That's incredible.
After being so resistant, and believe me, I was very resistant to doing the cover version, but after being so resistant and that happening, I just thought, this is fate. This is meant to be,
yeah.
You know? So a couple of weeks later, we were off in the studio, giving it in the studio.
Well, it was a massive hit, wasn't it? You know, you guys did so
all
well.
Over the place. All over.
Everywhere. Yeah, you must have, toured extensively. You've done Top of the Pops numerous times. I mean, that must have been great fun. And didn't you also, used to work on Top of the Pops before Popstar days as well?
If you watch Top of the Pops on a Friday night, and I know many people do on BBC Two or BBC Four, when you get some of the early 80s ones, I was a strapping very young guy. I used to be a cheerleader. I don't know why I'm talking with my hands today. I think I need to be back on children's BBC and have the duck for the puppet. So basically, I was a cheerleader on Top of the Pops. So when you watch it now and you see this overeager, very lively beaver, it's me. I've then did the warm-ups for Top of the Pops. And so when I went back, can you imagine the thrill? Yeah. I'd been introducing the act. I'd been doing the warm-up. I'd been dancing behind, all the act.
Yeah.
And then suddenly me, just the best thrill. Because years ago, Top of the Pops, we've had the last sort of 15 years where the X Factor was, the biggest thing since sliced
Simon
bread.
Again, isn't it?
Simon again, bless him, still in his tan. Actually more tanned with better teeth now. But anyway, he knows I'm only joking. But, that was the biggest show. Well, when I was younger and when a lot of people were younger, Top of the Pops, in a sense, was even bigger because there weren't that many channels. And it was just enormous, Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
You grew up, when I was a kid, you went to school on a Friday morning after watching it the night before, and everybody was talking about Top of the Pops. So to be on it was, I would say, one of the biggest thrills of my life.
Absolute dream come true.
People are probably sitting at home going, you haven't had much of a life if that's your biggest thrill.
I would say that so many artists, that's got to have been the number one thing for them. Why wouldn't it have been? As you say, it was the biggest show of its time. To be on that, it's got to be one of the best things.
You'd arrived. I mean, you did all the other shows, the Disney clubs This Morning, With Respect, great shows.
Yeah.
You'd done all of those, but Top of the Pops was, if you were on Top of the Pops, everybody saw you.
Absolutely legendary and iconic show, wasn't it? So how did you come up with the name Yell? Was that your idea? In the 90s, there were sort of these bands, and I know they had exclamation marks at the end, like the Wham, and and then this Yell. So, how did that come about?
I think it's like a youthful thing, to make a statement.
Yeah.
Well, there was a program on a Sunday afternoon that Janet Street Porter presented, and I think she produced it as well. And it was called Network 7.
Okay.
And she, we all know Janet likes very unusual, very arty, wacky, edgy things. And she had this guy in a basement of some kind of warehouse with a light bulb on a long string swinging across. It was like, and it was swinging across. And she said, she said, this guy says that he's going to yell for 24 hours for charity. And he proceeded then to yell. I mean, we didn't watch him for the 24 hours, but she said the word yell that many times. I just thought, actually, that's quite catchy. So I went in next day to meet Jeff Chegwin, our manager, and I said, I've thought of a name for the band, Yell. Because it's a bit of a statement, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, it works. Yeah, and just that one syllable as well.
Janet Street Porter is responsible for the name.
It's all down to her.
Funny enough, we were on, in those days, I think it's GMB now, but in those days it was TVAM.
Oh, yeah.
But it was still Lorraine, and it was Richard Keys and Ulrika Johnson doing the weather. And we were on about 5 to 8. And we were having a bit of an old chin wag, and we dressed up this summer in the suits. We'd taken the hoodies off. And because after you've had a hit, you can wear a suit, you know.
You've got that kind of status at that point.
Yeah, you know, you'd managed to get a couple of quid in the bank. I mean, it was just, anyway. So somebody had phoned in, and they said, we've got this message from the island of Yell in the north of Scotland. And they said, we would love you to come and visit us. And I really wished, I said at the time, we must go. It never happened. But I've still got this thing that one day I will go, because there's a small island called Yell. How fabulous.
Wow, that is fantastic. And you still haven't made it there yet.
I still haven't made it, but you know what?
Come on, Daniel, get up there.
I know, get up there.
They're still waiting for you.
Yeah, well, there's probably a population of like 4, bless them. So at least I could have like, you know, a full house.
Yeah. Oh, not at all. You've got such a loyal following of fans from all those years back to right up to the present day, haven't you? Can
I just say, I mean, a huge thank you. And Karen, one of the fans, lives in Northampton. Basically, the Yell fans were amazing. They used to know where we were going before we were going there. They would be, you know, they'd be outside the Daily Mirror or the Sun or some newspaper waiting before we got there. And they used to congregate outside my flat downstairs. Funny, when my mum and dad came to visit me, my mum and dad couldn't take it in, you know, because to them, I'm just, you know, pick your underpants up off the floor, you know, have you washed those cups? You know what I mean? And they arrive at my house and they see like, you know, 20 girls and a couple of guys outside the house. They're baffled. You know,
amazing.
We showed this family, you know.
No,
the fans, they were so loyal. They turned up over. They even came to Holland. You know, we would do gigs abroad, and I remember when I think we were in a place called Groningen, and we hadn't stopped for 2 years. You know, from when we first got together touring to when we got big and we were touring all over Europe, and we were in Groningen, and you rarely got any time off. But for some reason, something had been cancelled. And we had 3 or 4 hours off. So we hired a couple of bikes because obviously Holland's quite flat, very pretty. And we went off on the bikes and we looked over our shoulders and all the fans had hired the bikes as well. So we all went on this fabulous bike ride. But those are the lovely moments, you know, lovely little memories. You know, it's great being like Barcelona on stage for 30,000 people. Amazing. But those little moments, because we wouldn't have been where we were if it wasn't for those fans.
That's
you know,
right.
Half of them should have been at school. You know, one of them's dad, you know, came one day and told me off for keeping his daughter from school.
Wow.
You know,
yeah.
Jessica's dad was furious with me. And I remember, but Jessica, Kerry, Ali, Karen, Rosemary, just Sam, Kelly. They're all still around now. They are amazing.
They will be delighted that you've given them a shout out as well.
Well, they came to Holland and they cycled. Some of them came to Holland. They cycled around with us, and it was amazing. But do you know what? Our schedule was so hectic. Nobody in those days thought about anybody's mental health. And you know, by the end of Yell, I was very burned out, and it ended very badly, and I had a bit of a breakdown. And I look at the bands now. You know, your One Directions and all the other bands that, you know, and then you read about people complaining of mental health. I think it's very important that managers and record companies schedule some downtime. And I know it's all about the money, and I appreciate they've invested loads, but I think you get what you put in, you get out. And I think if they can just schedule just a little bit of time for artists to pull the plug, you know, like if you've got a balloon and it goes,
yeah,
you need that just tiny bits. It doesn't have to be days, just tiny little windows where people can drop their shoulders and forget that they're a pop star, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Because that comes with sort of weird pressures of having to look good, be thin, you know, always be perky. You know, that job, I know it's not going down a mine. I know it's not being a shipbuilder. I know it's not working in a factory during the night. I am well aware of that. I've done ordinary jobs as well. But it does bring with it a kind of emotional and mental pressure.
Of course it does. Yeah.
Unique to the industry.
Yeah.
And I just hope that going forward, people will realise you can flog your acts, but you can flog your acts practically to death, and they'll want to split up and they'll want to leave, or they'll have breakdowns. But if you try and fit them some little windows in there, maybe to, you know, fly in or they can see their mum or their dad or their brother or their sister or a mate from school, you would be amazed how that just feeds them. And then they go back to the job because it is a job, refreshed. And they wouldn't probably want to run away from it so quickly. You know, people wonder why bands and people split up. It's usually because of sort of those kind of pressures, you know. So we had this little window in Holland, and it was just a sunny afternoon, and we had the most amazing time. Plus the fans were there, who were just the sweetest. And of course we bound on stage that night even more lively than if we'd been on a coach somewhere. So, you know,
so that had given you that boost, hadn't it? And being out in the fresh air and the exercise and seeing
my
people.
hope for groups is that that'll happen going forward. If only you know they could have people to advise them, it would be.
You'd be a great mentor for that kind of thing, wouldn't you?
Well, I've been called many things in my time. Mentor wasn't one of them.
Yeah, but that's really good advice though for people starting out, and then people getting onto that sort of that, you know, that treadmill and that roller coaster lifestyle. And also, I suppose these days as well, if you're in the public eye with that fame, it's on everything all the time, everywhere, isn't it? It's not just sort of on one channel a week or whatever. It's all over social media all the time. People can be filming. And
I mean, in a way, it would have been great to have the social media, because it kind of, you can be, you know, your stuff you're doing in Holland can be in Brazil, it can be in America. So your fan base or new fans can reach out to you, and you can reach out to them. But the flip side of that, it's like people always say to me, how has the industry changed? And I think, well, you're probably better talking to Elton John or Cliff Richard, you know, or somebody who's been around really a long time and been really up there. But from my small point of view and my small amount of success, I think the internet is amazing in the fact that it's given people who couldn't have got a record deal the exposure to release their own records, and also to reach people around the world. But obviously there's a downside to that as well, because the pressures that puts on you is enormous as well. So I suppose everything's a balancing act, isn't it?
It is. It has to be, doesn't it? You have to kind of be mindful about what you're doing and what you're getting into, I suppose. Now, let's talk about your latest single, because I love this. So this is really cool. It's kind of quite summery. It's got a kind of chilled, upbeat vibe about it. Don't want to lose that girl. So how did that come about?
Well, earlier in the year, during the big first lockdown, I hadn't sung for decades. People probably know this story, so forgive me if I'm boring you and you're growing a beard out of boredom. I went for long walks during the first lockdown. I was away from my family. I was quite lonely. And I would walk every night, and I would watch all these news stories talking about the pandemic. And in the early days, everybody took it really seriously.
Oh, yeah. It was terrifying, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was nobody out on the streets apart from me and a fox. Seriously.
Yeah.
And gradually, all these things would go through my mind, and I started writing songs. I hadn't sung in decades. I'd done a bit of karaoke at a pub in Sunderland where my cousins live, but not proper. I'd not sang in front. I'd never been in a studio, because when Yell ended, it was so painful for me. It ended overnight so harshly, and I didn't have anyone to turn to. I ended up having a bit of a breakdown and moving to the States for a while. So when the lockdown happened and I was going out for these walks, there was nothing in my mind about singing, nothing in my mind about recording. But I started to think about all the things that people were going through in lockdown. And I ended up writing the first song that I released in April, May this year, called Set Your Spirit Free. And that was all about our hopes of coming out of lockdown. And it got to number 16 in the Heritage chart. My God, was that a thrill?
Aww.
Can you imagine? The only chart I thought I'd be on is a medical chart. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm in a chart. Who knew? So when that kind of faded, I had a song that I'd also been thinking about, and towards the end of lockdown, you could start to go on walks with other people, but you had to keep a safe distance. Do you remember? It was like 6 feet apart, you know, and everyone had these sticks, you know. And I've been out for various walks with people that I hadn't been able to see during the first lockdown. And there was a couple in their 30s and 40s, there was a couple in their 50s, and there was a couple in their 80s. They were 80. And I hadn't seen these people for a long time. And at different times we went for walks. And I would go for a walk with one half of the couple one day and another half the other day. And they started to tell me about the strains they were having in their relationships. And that during lockdown, squeezed together, you know, not being able to see anybody, their relationships had got a bit lost.
Yeah.
and they were rowing, or they were miserable or frustrated, because people had lost jobs, they couldn't see family. We all know what people were going through.
Massively stressful time, massively for a lot of people.
And these three couples were all in their own way going through, and they kept saying to me, how are we going to get back that sparkle? I don't know how to make it fun again. And they would talk to me, we would go to them, and I stayed neutral because obviously you can see I can talk for England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales and the Republic, but I'm a good listener as well.
Yeah.
And I just listened and I stayed neutral. I didn't take sides because, I love all my friends.
Yeah.
But I listened and I soaked it up. And after a few weeks, I started to write this song down, because the surprising thing is they were all going through the same thing, but there was one guy who was 80. And the last words he said to me, we were sitting on a bench. He was there and I was here, distance. And he said, I don't want to lose that girl. Oh. And you wouldn't think an 80, no, when I've said that to people, they go, no, that's not the kind of thing an 80-year-old says. I said, but in his head, he's not 80. No. An 80-year-old still feels 21. He still thinks he's that young bloke.
Yeah.
And that's his girl. And when he was young, in the war years or whatever, she was his girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when he flew or whatever it was he did in the war, I think he flew or he was in the Navy, he thought about his girl and he looked at the picture and he said to me, I don't want to lose that girl. And that's where nobody, they all think, it's really weird that actually came from an elderly person.
Yeah.
But we have to remember, it doesn't matter what age you are, what gender you are, love, emotion hits you at any age,
of course.
And it doesn't matter. And it can rip you and break you and hurt you. It can also make you walk on water. It's that wonderful. Yeah. But it's up or it's down, And these people were all in a rocky patch. So basically, I wrote this song, Don't Want to Lose That Girl, and it's, in my description sounds is a little bit maudlin. It's actually very up tempo because
it is,
the message is of hope, because two of the couples rekindled everything. Yay! They're happy as Larry. They're going on dates. They're probably one of them's probably going to have another baby. The late ones in the 30s, 40s. I'm saying to them, be careful. There's twins on the way, I think. But
great.
Out of the three couples, I think I'll probably given the game away now. Do you think all three couples stayed together, or which couple do you think maybe might not or might have nearly not stayed together?
I think one of the couples may not have stayed together, but hopefully all of them did. You did say two of them were still going strong.
Yeah, I gave the game away a little bit. The 80-year-old couple didn't stay together. And everybody's gobsmacked because everybody thinks of that generation when, they didn't do that kind of thing, especially at 80, they'd been married 60 years. But the lady said to me, I just want a bit of peace. She'd had 3 kids with him. She'd had loads of grandchildren. And I think there were probably times during the relationship years ago that she probably wanted to escape, not because there's anything really bad going on, but she just didn't want to be with him anymore. And obviously the lockdown had kind of been the straw that broke the camel's back. And she thought, it's now or never. And she just says, I just want a bit of peace and quiet. I want to do my own thing. She left him, and he did lose that girl, and he's absolutely devastated.
Oh, dear.
Obviously, he's got his family around him, and they're keeping him on. And I think they're having. She said to him, "Look, we can go out on day trips. I'll still see you." But she said to him, "But you're not coming home with me."
Gosh, they might get back together again.
Well, who knows? The only thing I'll say is what she did say to me was, in my generation, she said, whatever bad was going in the marriage or how tough it was, she said you had to grin and bear it.
Yeah, you just had to get on with it, I suppose, in those days.
So I mentioned grin and bear it the other day to somebody quite young that was interviewing me, and they didn't realise the context I was saying it, and they said, "Oh, is that an app?" They thought grin and bear it was an app, and I said, no, this is what generations did years ago during tough times. They had to grin and bear it. And I think this lady had grin and bared it for decades and thought, no, I want to be on my own. So 2 couples stay together, they're dating, I won't say what they're doing, but they're having a very happy time.
It's all going good for them, put it that way.
Yeah, it's great. And that's what the song's about. It's about hope. And it's uplifting and it's happy. And it's already gone in the Heritage chart at 29.
That's
so
great.
29 this week. I'm over the moon. Listen,
Yeah.
Thank you. If anybody's watching has already voted, I'm so grateful. And if anybody hasn't voted, please go to www.heritagechart.co.uk or just the Heritage Chart on Google. You'll find it. And then you get on it and there's an orange thing that says vote now. Please scroll down to number 37. Click on that, scroll to 29, and it says, Daniel James, don't want to lose that girl. Please click it and then press submit. And then I might go up next Sunday. Because every Sunday, we'd announce the start. Well, I'm hoping. The last one got to 16. I'd love to better the last one if possible.
Sure.
And it's a lovely summer song. So who knows?
It is a lovely song. And I'm sure you've got loads of great plans ahead.
Well, let's see how I may be releasing another track in a month's time. It's like my mum used to say, when I used to get acting jobs, I'd go for ages with nothing. And then 3 had come at once. And my mum used to
waiting
say,
for a bus.
Yeah, she says, well, you always get 3 at once, So the thing is,
yes.
I might be releasing a cover version. I've done a cover version of an old Minnie Riperton track, Loving You. Loving You.
Oh, yeah, lovely song. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
I've done a duet with a fabulous lady singer called Melissa Whitehouse. And we're kind of toying with the idea towards the end of the summer because it's really upbeat and summy. Summy? It's summy and it's summery.
Bit of both.
Don't want to lose that girl is summery, but this is even more summery. And we're thinking we might knock it out towards the end of the summer and it's really dancing. So that might be happening. And then in the autumn, I've got a couple of choices. There's a track called Do You Remember Me? And then there's another track called Baby With Your Blue Eyes. And I can't quite make my mind up at the moment. But, I'm not, what's it, counting my horses before the sheep? No, what's it called? Running Before I Can Walk? Something like that. I'm not doing that because you know what? If Don't Wanna Lose That Girl plummets down the chart, I'll just hide away again and I'll not do anything for decades.
Sure, you will be doing stuff. They have all these festivals, don't they, with all these 90s acts who come on and sing
somebody
stuff.
Invite me on. I'm ready and willing. I did a gig on Saturday at Fabulous for Mind and for Blastoma, this wonderful, charity for this little boy who'd had cancer. And it was at the Railway Tavern in Durham in Norfolk. And I went up to Norfolk. Wonderful people, wonderful charities. And I hadn't performed in front of anyone for years. I was expecting custard pies and tomatoes, So I knocked out a couple of songs and I thought, I think I can do this.
I think it went all
right. If
right.
anybody offers me any 90s revival gigs or whatever, I'm up and running. I'm raring to go.
Oh, people want to hear you. And we need that live music experience now more than ever before. Now it's all happening again. I'm sure that you'll pick up loads of different gigs across the country and beyond.
Well, I hope so. At the moment, I'm hammering out radio interviews. Do you know what a thrill it is to do all this? It's like now I don't want to say more control, but in a sense I have, because the one thing that I would change if I could about being in Yale, and it was wonderful, we didn't have much control, No. In those days, you turned up, you sang your song, you shut your mouth and you left.
Yes.
And I kind of had written songs. I saw us as a singer-songwriting act that could have gone on and had a bit of longevity and maybe gone solo later on. But we were kind of put in a box and things happened. And then we had to wait for the second single so long because Simon wanted to wait for Mike, Matt and Pete to write as a follow-up. Right. And I'm kind of knocking on Simon's door saying, look, we've got tracks on the album. Let's get one of the album tracks out. Just needs a remix. And I think when you're a young pop act with a youngish following, I think if you leave it too long, you can go down the pan very, very quickly. And unfortunately, that began to happen. And I think had that not happened, and had we released some of our own material, we probably would have had much more longevity.
Yeah,
but I've got that opportunity now that I never even thought would happen.
Yeah, no, and it's brilliant that you're doing it. And you're obviously so ready and the time is right for you to do it, isn't it? So how can we get hold of you then? How can we get hold of your new single and on the other tracks?
Well, Don't Wanna Lose That Girl is on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, Apple, and every site you can imagine. Yeah. Everywhere. And as I say, you can vote for it on the Heritage Chart. Yep. I'm on radio stations like yours, left, right, and centre.
Yep.
Which have been a godsend. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And we can follow you on Instagram.
I'm on Insta, me Daniel James. I'm on what else am I? I've got a YouTube channel, but there's not much on it at the moment. I'm pretty naff.
So more will come.
I shot a video this week. Did I tell you on Monday?
No, but I read that on the emails. Yeah, so that sounds exciting. Tell me about that.
I haven't shot. I mean, the last time, I've done a video. Who knew? So basically,
why not?
shot the video. Two fabulous director, Ben and Andy, the producer. They sent me the first edit. We're making some changes. They've sent me the second edit. I haven't watched it yet. So hopefully, within the next 5 days, we should have a video for Don't Wanna Lose That Girl. And that's going to,
that's we need.
Yeah. I had a photo session Friday for new photos, which people have now got.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm sort of being a bit of a, pop singer again,
Yay!
So,
you're making a comeback, and why not?
So please keep your eye on for this Daniel James on YouTube channel. The video will be going on there. I had a lyric video for the last song. That's on the YouTube channel.
Right.
But as I say, me, Daniel James on Instagram, on Twitter, Daniel James 1925. So I'm all over the place. We'll
be sharing it. Yeah, definitely.
Tell me what you think of the song. I hope you like it. I hope it's very uplifting, and I hope people just enjoy the new song. And as I say, the rest of the year there might be a couple of more tracks, and it would just be lovely. I've got the Yell fans follow me. It'd be great. I am getting some new followers. It'd be fabulous. Everyone's welcome.
There'll be just more and more. Well, what a lovely chap. Keep on doing what you're doing, Daniel. It's been fantastic to meet you and, hear all your stories and what you're up to now. So I wish you all the very best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your support. And thank you to everyone who's following me and supporting Don't Wanna Lose That Girl.
Don't Wanna Lose That Girl. It's a fantastic track. Thank you. Bye-bye for now, but we'll talk again another day, I'm sure.
Bye-bye. Thank you again.